I'm just here to introduce Noel Schulz, the First Lady. She's also an electrical engineering and computer science professor here, and she's graciously agreed to moderate our panel discussion today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, come on. Okay. Good early evening, I guess. So welcome. It's very exciting to see the great turnout that we have here on this first year of this event and the activities. And I'm really honored to have a chance to be on the stage with the panelists and be able to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and opportunities we have as women in STEM. So what I would like to do is really spend time talking more about them, having them talk, than you hearing me read what's in front of you. So you should have their program, a program that has, I'm not going to read their whole bios. I'm just going to read their names and introduce you, and then we're going to start where they're going to give you a short bios about their background, and then we're going to go into some questions, and then hopefully have some time for Q&A. So if you have a question, write it down, or like most of the students, type it into your phone, and then you can ask the question when we get to the Q&A time along the way. So let me start. I'm going to go down the line here. So first we have Katie Joshi, who is a professor and chair of WSU Department of Management, Information Systems, and Entrepreneurship. Next, we have Julie Averill. Close?
Averill, yep.
Averill, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Lululemon. Next, we have Tiffany. Tiffany Gaulke, who is an MD and is coming from Spokane in the Providence Medical Group. Tiffany. Next, we have Tracy Roberts, who is an electrical engineer for Mission Support Alliance at the Hanford Nuclear Site. And then last, we have Lean Kawas, and she is a PhD president of M3 Biotechnology. So what I'm going to do is start here and move down and ask them to each just talk for a minute or a little more about their background, so they can share a little bit about you beyond what's kind of on this sheet, so you can get a little bit more about their background and what they think is important in their career. And I'm going to sit down and do this from there. So go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I was asked not to move the mic. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Katie. Hello, everyone. Really nice to see all of you. And you can talk to us even after this is done. I'll be on that MISC table. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of what we were asked to say was something fun about us. I do not know whether that's fun or not, but I have taught here for 20 years. I've been at WSU for 20 years. So I've taught thousands of Carson Cougs how to design and build systems for humans, so that humans can use. And a fun fact about me is I am a huge sports fan. And if the academic career didn't work out, I was going to try working for the ESPN network.
I did move it. Hi guys, I'm Julie. This is my first time in Pullman, so happy to be here. Yeah. So I've spent most of my career in the consumer technology space, undergraduate degree in computer science, shout out to the comp sci team over here, and MBA from the University of Washington, and I spent 10 years at Nordstrom doing all sorts of things that face the consumer, so things like mobile apps and websites and stores or store technology, so technology for the salespeople to use to interact with the customer. If you guys know what omni-channel is, bridging the gap between online and the in-store world, doing things like making all the stores turn into warehouses so you can sell inventory. Did that for 10 years, and I went to REI as the CIO there, and I'm now the Chief Technology Officer at Lululemon, and I've been here a little bit less than a year. So look forward to chatting with you guys more.
I'm Tiffany, and I am a Coug. I did my undergraduate here at WSU, majored in neuroscience. As Noel said, I'm a doctor up in Spokane. I went to medical school at UW, but I did not adopt the Huskies, so I am still a Coug. And I do primary care, outpatient clinic medicine up in Spokane. My husband is also a doctor, does primary care as well. And you'll hear a little bit more about why I chose those things in a little bit. Fun fact about me, I had a hard time coming up with something, but I think in medicine, men get to show their personalities by wearing fun ties, if they choose to wear fun ties. I decided I didn't want to wear ties, so I wear fun socks, and I make sure that my socks coordinate with my outfit. And even more, maybe neurotic or crazy, I like to make sure that my travel coffee cup matches my outfit as well. So that's a little fun thing about me.
I'm moving it too. I'm Tracy Roberts. I got both my bachelor's. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? All right. I got both my bachelor's and my master's in electrical engineering at WSU Tri-Cities. So go Cougs. I started my career in ultra-low background radiation detection at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, where I did a lot of analog electronics and signal processing. And my fun fact is that I actually invented an instrument that can be used to calibrate certain types of radiation detectors. It's been submitted for a patent through the lab. So that's pretty neat. It'll take years before it goes through, so we'll find out. But yeah. Now I work at the Hanford Nuclear Cleanup Site, doing low voltage power engineering. So the Hanford site is about 500 square miles. It's like half the size of Rhode Island. 8,000 people go out there to work every day. It's in the middle of the desert of nowhere. And so my company does site infrastructure. We support keeping the lights on and the water running, and support the mission of people actually being out there and being able to work. So.
Hi, I'm Lean Kawas. I'm the CEO of M3 Biotechnology. I'm from Jordan, and I did my PharmD in Jordan. Worked for 3 months as a pharmacist. Decided I wasn't a pharmacist, so I came to WSU to do my PhD in pharmacology. And actually, both Joe Harding, my main PI, is here in the audience, and worked also with Nihal, who's here. I had a baby 6 weeks ago, so this is the fun fact. I'm not going to be able to join you for dinner, but you guys, if you have any questions, I'm volunteering both of them to answer it for me. Yeah, I'm looking forward for the discussion today.
Did we get everybody's fun fact? Did we get yours?
Fun fact for me, well, let's see, my baseball's in my genes, but it skipped me. But my grandfather's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and my dad played 8 years in the majors. And now my son plays soccer, which is really sad for my family. Yeah.
So I'll stay up here. Hopefully this doesn't move. Next, we have the next question. We divided up a couple of the questions, so not everyone's going to respond, just so we can have time at the end. So the next question is for Tiffany, Lean, and Julie. How did you get started into your STEM career and your current type of work? Was the path straightforward or had kind of a different route? So why don't we start with Tiffany?
Okay, so I grew up in Colfax. Everyone here knows where Colfax is. And during high school, I just found that I was really interested in both math and science. And fortunately, being so close to Pullman, I had some connections and was able to get in and work in some labs in the neuroscience department. Even I think as young as the summer after my freshman year of high school. I was too young to be paid, so it was a volunteer position. But I got to do things that may seem like scut work, but to a high school almost sophomore was super cool, like getting to cryo slice frozen rat brains and things like that. And I was really interested in the research part. So for a while I was thinking, gosh, maybe I want to go into research. I kept working in labs each summer through high school, and then toward the end of high school, I kind of started thinking, this is really amazing, and you can make these discoveries that help thousands or more people in whatever Parkinson's disease or whatever the thing is that you're researching. But I decided I really needed more immediate gratification. I wanted to interact with people face to face and see the smile on their face as I help them feel better in one way or another. So then came to WSU, did my undergrad in neuroscience, and that was a great jumping board platform into getting into medical school. Sort of briefly considered going into neurology with the undergrad training in neuroscience, but really decided that I wanted to do primary care. So I went into residency training in a dual program, both internal medicine and pediatrics. And internal medicine are specialists in adults. They only see adults, and pediatricians obviously just see kids. So it takes two 3-year training programs, residency training programs, and pushes them together into a 4-year program. But at the end, I came out and I was board certified to take care of both adults and kids. And some people use that to go into certain specialties where there's a lot of overlap, like pediatric pulmonology, where kids with CF are growing up to be adults and need to be cared for as adults, even though it's kind of been seen in the past as a pediatric illness. Myself, I wanted to use that to go into primary care and felt like I was really well trained to take care of both the adult and the pediatric patients. So my career path was pretty straightforward, though I did think about the lab work for a while, but not too many big hiccups in the road of getting to a doctor.
Lean?
Yes, so for me, my family was heavy on science, and my mom was more in the business side of things. My dad was an engineer and more focused on science. So when I finished my high school, I basically liked chemistry and accounting, and my mom convinced me that pharmacy is the answer, which was right in some ways, but not in every way. I liked the knowledge that I acquired during, pharmacy school. So after I worked for 3 months, I decided this is not what I wanted to do. I started looking into research, although my research experience was very theoretical at that point, but I was lucky to come here actually and work in a lab that was more translational, meaning that the science is not super basic. It's actually very close to become a product and translate into a tool or a therapy that could help people. So that really excited me. And then I ended up, starting a company, raising money, and creating a team, which is very exciting. But also, this is something that wasn't straightforward for me, because after I finished my PhD, I already, I was applying for jobs. But then Joe, who's here, he basically told me, why don't you stay and help with the company for a year? And I honestly didn't understand what entrepreneurship means. If you think about Europe, Jordan is the same. You have to find a very stable job. So I didn't relate with this definition, but I said, why not? I'll try it for a year. And the thing that actually also helped is I emailed the other people. I told them, this is the situation. I really can't accept the job. And they said, we'll wait for a year. If it doesn't, this is a great opportunity. we'll wait for you for a year, but I see them in conferences right now, but I didn't take the job, obviously. So it's actually putting myself out there and being open to opportunities and using the tools that I acquired at every stage in my life at this stage, actually. Being a pharmacist helps me right now to understand reimbursement, insurance, how should the drug look like to actually be feasible for patients to use. And all the science background that I gained here also, and the ability to look for knowledge and not being afraid of encountering something that I have no idea what it is actually fantastic, because the tools that I acquired during my PhD helps me navigate things in the company. And we started with a discovery stage product here. We developed it in the company, and we're actually right now in the clinic for Alzheimer's, which is amazing for us.
Great. Julie.
Yeah, you guys are impressive. That's my path was nowhere near as straightforward. I think I was really fortunate that when I was in the 5th grade, my dad put me in a computer science class, really a training class at Radio Shack. It was progressive at the time, and here I was, a 5th grade girl in with a bunch of adults, all men, and I don't think I even noticed. I just loved the technology, and I just loved the the power that I saw in working with a machine and using logic and building. And so that was really where I think my passion for tech started. But then when I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Had no role models in terms of what would a career in computer science look like, let alone any women that had that I could look to be a role model. And so I started studying business. My heart wasn't in it. I was working. Actually, I worked since I was 16, doing consulting. It was very early days, but businesses didn't know how to use desktop computing, and so I learned things like WordPerfect, which was the early competitor to Word, and Lotus 1-2-3, which is the competitor to Excel. And I'd go in and I'd teach businesses how to use technology, and then I'd write little programs and things like Access databases, and that's what I was doing. That's where my passion was, but didn't translate to me to a degree, and so I didn't end up graduating with my undergrad degree until I was almost 25, because I was working full-time and it just took a circuitous path. But eventually I decided to study computer science, and I did that in the evening while I worked full-time, and then continued to work full-time, got my master's degree from the UW, also in the evening. And then I feel like I just made a decision early on that I was always going to be in a situation where I was learning something and felt like I was in a place that matched my values, and that I was happy maybe 80% of the time. And when one of those things no longer happened, I was going to find the next thing that was that opportunity. And so I have ended up in this consumer-facing retail space. But if you would have asked me, are you going to be the CTO of a apparel company, I would have thought that was the craziest thing. So it's been pretty circuitous, and I would say opportunistic for me.
Well, I think it's great to hear stories, because a lot of times we think about that people went A, B, C, that it was a very straight path. And for many of us, there are different paths along the way. So thank you for sharing, all of you. For the next question is for Katie and Tracy. How do I know when I'm good enough to sit at the table? Well, you're all sitting at the table today, but in the business, in your workplace, how do you know when you can sit at the table with your colleagues?
Okay.
Katie.
Well, this was my favorite question, and I just made it my own question. And if I don't answer it, I can try again. But I was taught to believe in myself and to work really hard to get the credits. So I never questioned that if I was good enough to sit on the table or at the table. However, I soon realized that, and shockingly, I don't even think it was surprising, that people who were at the table or folks who had the power to make the decision on who gets to sit at the table did not believe in me. Not many of them didn't believe in me. So what I learned is it was not good enough to be as good as the people who are already at the table. I had to be better. Reflecting back, I had a lot of help. There were some people, my mentors, who believed in me, much more than probably even I did, even though my self-esteem was never at stake, but I don't think I thought through certain pathways like Julie mentioned. And if it was not for those mentors, I won't be sitting at this table. So find good mentors, seek out good mentors. It would not happen automatically unless you proactively seek them out.
Tracy, how about you?
I love this question. So what I would say, have you heard of the imposter syndrome? It's where, so there are books about it. It's where you're very qualified and you're doing all the right things, but you still don't feel like you should be there at the table. So I would say, look at the hard facts. Get out a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet or Lotus 123 if you're still into that. And pick out maybe a couple of your peers that you would view as successful or as worthy of sitting at the table, and then write down, okay, here's them, here's me. Let's look at GPA. Okay, what's my GPA? What's their GPA? Let's look at scholarships. What do I have? What do they have? Internships, professional societies that you belong to, events that you go to, and then you'll have hard facts, evidence right in front of you, and you can look at it and say, okay, well, I'm on par with this person who I think is successful on paper. I'm looking at that and thinking, okay, well, my gut tells me that they're okay to sit at the table. My gut tells me that I'm not ready to sit at the table, and you can go, well, gut, you're wrong. So, having that written down on paper or whatever, visual, seeing it, saying proof. Okay, here's proof that, I am good enough to sit at the table, and then go convince yourself of it.
Great. And I just want to mention, I really appreciate the men that are in the audience because it's important for women in STEM for us to have men that are partners and helping, particularly as we talk about imposter syndrome, where a woman doubts her abilities, having colleagues around to help support her and say, no, you are good enough, let's sit at the table together, or helping through those situations. We need allies and men, so I appreciate all those that are here tonight, because it really is about women in STEM is not about women only. It's about how do we create a culture that's important for women to be successful. Okay, the next question is going to be for everybody, but I'm going to start with Katie and ask, why did you decide to take a career path into academics? What did you start out thinking that, or did you just find your way?
So my dad was a professor, and I was born and raised in academia and lived all my life on in university campuses. I actually tried very hard to move away from my predestined academic career and found out that I didn't like it at all. So I went back to school, got my PhD, and became a faculty member. It is one of the best jobs in this entire world for two reasons. One, you get to create new knowledge and do research. And second, you get to transfer and disseminate that knowledge through teaching these young minds. So I did what I guess I was supposed to do, but I love what I'm doing.
So great, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the rest of the panel's career paths, and kind of, you've talked a little bit about this in some of the other earlier questions, but maybe a little bit more. How did you pick your career related, and we'll start with Tiffany first.
I think I sort of answered the question already, but the one thing I didn't really go into is primary care, why I picked primary care over specialty care. And that may be a bit of a nitpicky point when you aren't pre-med students trying to decide what you want to do. You're trying to decide what grand career at this point in your life. But you really just have to find what, I don't know, what tickles your fancy, I guess, is what's in my head. But I went into primary care because I really wanted to get to know my patients, and I wanted to be able to see the same patients over and over. Maybe it's once a year if they're healthy and if I'm doing a good job helping them stay healthy. Maybe it's more often if they're older or frail or they've got a lot of things going on. But to me, I really enjoy that interaction with and getting to know my patients and sometimes their families. And in primary care, I get to see the grandma, the mom, the baby, sometimes to the fourth generation. And so I guess my answer is you've got to really find what aspect really what really sparks your interest and go that direction.
Okay. Julie.
What I hear in this question is how do you know what you're gonna do for a career when you grow up in life, right? And I think that's a pretty loaded question. I have a almost 16-year-old daughter, and she's at a point that you guys were a number of years ago, right? Where do I go to school? What am I gonna study? And I have just tremendous empathy for being in that position because it's such a huge decision and you kind of feel like the rest of your life is dependent on that right answer. And I think what I would say is life is a journey. And college is a journey, just like the journey that you were at in high school and before that. And you make choices and the choices get bigger. But you're never at a point where it's just like, right or wrong and, you're at a dead end, right? The skills that have gotten you to the place where you're at, where you make good decisions based on the information you have is what will carry you into your career. And so for me, as I shared with you, it was hard for me to decide what I wanted to do with my undergraduate degree. But I just took this road of finding where the opportunities met my passion. And that's guided me to a specific place. But it wasn't a map that I laid out when I was 22 years old. I just, like, what's in front of me? What opportunities do I have that I can take most advantage of? And where are my passions and where are my interests? I got into my job at Nordstrom very opportunistically. I had a friend that I had worked with before that called me and said, hey, there's this job here, I think you'd be great at it. And I had been out of work for a year because I had my daughter. And I taught at Seattle University as well, so I'd just gotten a job at Seattle University teaching. And I thought, well, I'm not interested in this Nordstrom thing, but I decided to do it because he said, I just think you'd be great, and I thought I'd get some extra cash. And I ended up being there for 10 years, and that's just kind of the path that I took, and I stayed because I loved it. So,
Lean, you want to talk a little bit about your career path? I think you talked a little bit about it, so do you want to add anything?
Yeah, actually just a couple of points. First, if you are doing something that you don't enjoy, make sure that you don't spend 10 years. 3 months is a good period to leave and change what you're doing. What you studied in school, it's not the only thing that will determine your career path. And the third point, network, because you don't know what's out there unless you talk to people. Not the internet, actual people. Go out and talk to people because, through people, opportunities will present itself. And the fourth point, which Katie already highlighted, mentors that care about your success. It's very important to surround yourself with people who care about you and your career, and for you to spend time to listen, because we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you talk with your mentors, and you don't have to follow exactly what they're saying, but at least have people who have experience around you that could help you navigate your career.
Great. Tracy, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I actually did what Lean just said not to do, and it's really good advice. Don't stay in a career for 10 years if it's not right for you. My first career, I was an event coordinator for about 10 years, and it was fun and exciting, and I got to, you get to meet rock stars and whatever, but it wasn't using my brain to the extent that I wanted to. So I decided, later in life, I'm going to go back to school. And at that point, I owned a house in Richland, so WSU Tri-Cities it was. They offered 3 engineering programs, and so I chose the mathiest one because I like math, which was electrical engineering. My first career in electrical engineering was in analog electronics, and it's a very specific path, really awesome stuff. Got to do some really, really cool things. But I thought about my long-term plan, and one of my goals is to go live other places, maybe different countries, or at least not in the desert for the rest of my life in southeastern Washington, which I love right now. My boss is watching. No. And so I thought, okay, well, what's something that I can do that would allow me that mobility to be able to kind of like go and do wherever I want? And so the low voltage power engineering is everywhere. I mean, it's like everything that's in this room. If you go anywhere that has any sort of infrastructure, you can find it there. So that's how I chose that path.
Okay, great. So great advice, lots of different paths, and I think that's one of the important things as you go on your way is you need to get lots of different data points and see, then you can draw your own line through that data set and figure out what your path is. Okay, the next question is for Tracy, Julie, and Lean. How do you balance or integrate professional and personal aspects of your life? So Tracy?
This question is a tough one because it makes me want to ask the question, if this were not an exclusively woman panel, would the question actually be in the list of questions? And I don't think it would. I really don't think it would. I think it indicates that we're maybe holding ourselves to unrealistic standards and holding ourselves and maybe other women and not men to these standards, and we need to cut it out. It's not, you can't be everything, so just don't. I mean, you'll drive yourself nuts if you try to be everything. That said, my work-life balance strategy is when I'm at work, I'm at work, and when I'm at home, I'm at home, and wherever I'm at, that's, gets my full attention. And if they start crossing over on each other, then I know something's wrong, and with one of them, and I need to look at it and figure out what the problem is and solve it. And the solution is never to just try and manage and try and be better or do more or anything. It's it's a very engineering mindset thing to do, but you got to go in and find the problem and fix it, and then life is good. Life is balanced. So.
Julie?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves even in this question, because I think it's important that we realize that you have to make choices. You can't do everything in the world. I found myself in a situation once where I tried when I told you I got the job at Nordstrom and the job at CLU at the same time. So I had 2 jobs and a 1-year-old, and then a couple years later I had another one. So I found myself with 2 jobs and 2 kids. And at some point I was like, what am I doing? Life isn't a race, and it's not something where you try to cram everything into, because you end up not doing it super well. I have a big community around me. My family's all in the area, and I'm super blessed that way. Another thing I would add is that I think when you choose your career and you choose your company, choose one that aligns with what's important to you and allows you to be your true, authentic self. And then, you find ways to integrate your personal and your professional life. And it's not something I've always done. I spent probably my 20s trying to figure out how to play a part. And then, at some point, I realized that I'm better both at work and at home when I bring all of me into that and bring a level of authenticity. And it makes for, I think it makes for better days, and it also just makes you more happy in the world. So trying to figure out how to be something you're not is something that once I worked hard to overcome that, I think that it was a pivotal turning point in my life.
Dean, want to add anything?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm working on a startup, so it's a small company, and it's different. And if you're gonna start your own company, it is your life and it's your family. And even like I had a baby 6 weeks ago, I went back to work after 4 weeks. And I even never disconnected from the company. But I don't think there's no right or wrong way of doing things. If you are happy, whether you're spending, 12-hour at the office and you're working and you feel that you're giving back, I think it's fine. I'm a woman of color, foreigner. I come from the Middle East, so there's a lot of reasons that people could look at me and feel that, I'm different. But I've never felt true discrimination until I got pregnant, because people directly thought that a woman would not be as dedicated to her job if she had a baby, which is something that was very foreign to me, because yes, I want to have a family, but I want to be the role model for my daughter to think like, if I want to continue working and I feel really good and I'm happy, then I'll be happy at home. Like one of the things that my husband says, if work is going well, our relationship is perfect. So I think that whatever works for you, it's your own balance. I could feel guilty, oh my God, I'm here and my daughter is 6 weeks. I'm not guilty, I'm providing her with a role model that, you have to focus on your career and you could have a family, and you just have to make the sacrifices in each, at work and at your family that makes sense to you, not to other people or what the society think that you should be doing, okay?
Great advice. And I added integrate instead of balance, because if it is balance, it's like for a microsecond and then it's out of balance, at least in my personal experience for professional and personal. Okay, the next one is for everybody. And can you discuss one disappointment, obstacle, or failure you had and how you got through it? And this question is one I kind of brought up, because one of the challenges I see is all our resumes talk about all our successes, and they don't talk about the challenges we have. So a lot of times we look at leaders and say, wow, they went from A to B to C, and as we've heard today, that's not really what happened. So I think it's particularly important as we all run into our first obstacle or see those obstacles along the way. So I'll start with Lean and come this way. If you could just talk a little bit about a disappointment or challenge that you dealt with. And you've mentioned one already with your pregnancy.
Yeah, I would say it's the freshest and the highlight, I would say. I did a lot of. One time I was in a golf course. I was going to meet an investor, and I was waiting. I was wearing a dark. It was in Scottsdale in Arizona, very hot day, 90 degrees, and I was wearing a dark suit with one of the guys that worked with me. And then my investor was late, so he said, just meet with my friend in the lobby, Mike, I think his name. So me and my coworker are standing there, and he comes, and then I shake his hand, like Lean Kawas, and he's like, oh, you're Lean? I thought that you're Gina, the cart girl. And I was wearing a suit. I was like, wow, but it didn't faze me. I was like, oh, good for her. She's really good looking. And we laughed. But that was like a shock for me. People just assume what I am based on, And I actually had a lot of similar experiences, but it was very easy to change the mindset. Like, this guy eventually invested in the company, and we are really good friends right now. But if I took it personally, probably I would have lost, a good relationship and investment in the company. I experienced these things, but it was very easy for me to change their impressions. But I'm still working on what people think about me being a mom and running a company, and I'll send you data when I collect more.
Great. Tracy?
So I thought about this. My graduating class at WSU Tri-Cities of Electrical Engineering was 14 people. We're kind of a small school. And I was the only woman in our graduating class. And we'd gone on some field trips, and we go to events, and they always want to take pictures of the group. And I noticed after one, we went to the Columbia Generating Station, the nuclear power plant that's right there on the Columbia River north of Richland. And afterwards, we've been walking all through, reactor. We've been in the cooling towers. We've been wearing hard hats. We've been everything. We go outside and all line up and take a picture. And okay, cool. I look at the picture afterwards, and I notice that everyone in the picture, except for me, was standing facing forward, like facing the camera. And just like that. And I was doing the thing that we all do in pictures, what I'm talking about, off to the side. And I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, I'm making myself smaller. What am I doing? And I go back and look at all of these pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, every picture I look at, there's, all of, the people around me are confident, and they're getting big, and I'm, doing the getting small. And so, that was something that I had to change my mindset when pictures were being taken, or when when giving a presentation or something like that, standing and taking up space and saying, okay, I'm not here to make sure my arm doesn't look fat or something. I'm here to present and be powerful and do my engineering. And that was pretty. The pictures changed after that, and it felt good. It really increased my confidence as well, standing that way. There's a really great TED Talk on how the way that you stand, your postures affects how you feel, not how other people, probably how other people see you as well, but not only that, but actually how you feel too, and your confidence levels and your energy when you're going into, probably business or anything. That's really great. I would suggest looking it up, TED Talk. I can't remember her name right off the bat, but so pictures.
Great. Tiffany?
When I was in high school and applying for colleges, I was valedictorian of my high school class, so I was, high achiever. I was thinking, gosh, I want to go to an Ivy League school. So as I was looking into programs, thinking at that point already that I wanted to go into medicine, I found a program at Brown University that was a 6-year program where you would do your undergraduate and your medical school all in 6 years. And I thought that sounded awesome, so I was like, that's the program for me, that's what I'm going to do. I applied, and I didn't get in. So instead of being devastated, now WSU wasn't my second choice, but instead of being just devastated that I didn't get into this program that I thought was the right program for me, I said, you know what, I'm just going to make my own hard program. I'm going to challenge myself instead of this other program that I didn't get into. So I came to WSU. I picked what I saw as a hard major, neuroscience. I was active in clubs and programs on campus and really made sure to prove to my future application reviewers at medical school that just because I didn't get into that Ivy League program doesn't mean that I can't challenge myself and prove that I was a good candidate for medical school. So make the most of every situation, I guess, is my take home of sometimes you're disappointed, but you can make the most of what other opportunities you have been presented.
Julie?
So I've got a long list of things that I could pull from for this example of failures, but I guess for context, I told you my family comes from baseball lineage, which means I grew up in a very competitive environment. Brothers, just, there's no such thing as failure, right? You like driven, very, very competitive. And so by the time I was turning 30, I was vice president of an international ad agency, and I was running the Seattle office, and I was very much, a lot of my identity was intertwined with my career. And we were acquired about the same time that I got pregnant. And found myself having to do things like come out to Boston and reapply for my job. And I met in all the leaders of this company met in a cigar bar in Boston. And I, besides the woman in charge of HR, I was the only woman. And so I felt very out of place being pregnant and being a woman and being in a cigar bar, that I think I just didn't show up. I felt like my voice couldn't be heard at that table. They didn't want to hear me, whatever stories I wanted to make up. But I wasn't present, and found myself laid off at 6 months pregnant. Laid off, angry, wasn't sure how much of it was my fault, how much of it was not my fault, but it didn't feel fair, and it certainly wasn't where I chose to be at that point in my life. And at 6 months pregnant, probably not the most ideal time to look for another job. So found myself a stay-at-home mom, like something that I never ever saw in my life that I would be. But it turned out to be the best thing I ever did, because I was 18 months staying at home. I really went to the point where I thought I was never going to work again. I really liked it. But I also learned a lot about myself. And it's a period that I couldn't ever create for myself if I was still in the rat race. And I think it gave me incredible perspective on me and what's important in my life and what I really care about. So, I still look back at that time and can't really recreate how I would have showed up differently, but I would like to think that I would, but I certainly don't regret the outcome of it.
Katie, you want to finish?
Thank you. I have a list, so I had to pull one out of it, and this is mine. My first semester at the University of Michigan Engineering School was probably the most challenging. So the cohort is comprised of students who have always been at the highest level, top of their class, the very top of their class. And now, some of us, not all of us, could be at the top of the class. So the fierce competition, and a very expensive school. It's a public school, but the tuition is really high, collectively put tremendous pressure on me. And I always loved learning, but I stopped loving it. I just didn't like it. And it became a burden. Going to class and learning became a burden. And I'm like, that has to change. It's not sustainable. Stepped back, had to change my mindset. I'm like, I'm not going to worry about my grades. Although grades are important. I wanted to go for higher education, grades are important, but I had to change something. So I'm not going to worry about the grades. I'm going to look at the course, their course objectives, what does the faculty want me to learn, and I'm going to make it fun for me. So if it's a project that is assigned, I will make it something that I like doing, and try very hard to just focus on learning. And the second thing I did was, seemed self-evident, but wasn't to me, was practice, practice, practice. So if it was a project or a presentation or solving problems. We solved a lot of problems. I just practiced a lot. And what that did was you actually got closer to what my faculty wanted me to learn. Not necessarily solving that problem and getting a good grade, but the end is changing the cognitive muscle to think in a logical way, to think analytically. And that kind of thing, I started having fun. And luckily, grades followed as well. And if they didn't, probably I wouldn't have been admitted to a PhD program. So grades are important. But if you stop learning and if it becomes a burden, change something.
Great. So I want to open it up to questions, a few questions. Lean has a flight to catch, so we want to make sure she can get out of here. And the rest of us will be here for dinner if you have additional questions. But are there any questions from the audience? Right here. If you can tell us your name and your major.
Hi, I'm Marissa. I'm a zoology pre-med major with honors. I have a question for Tiffany. So when you were an undergrad, was there ever a time where you felt that medicine wasn't for you because of the stress of being a pre-med and keeping up with the requirements of what medical schools wanted?
No. Yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's stressful. But if you keep focusing on your end goal, it really makes the stress worth it. You've got to apply yourself. You can't goof off through undergrad because it doesn't work. You need to. And same with medical school. You've got to apply yourself. But no, there was no point at which I felt I was overwhelmed and that I didn't want to go. I mean, I had backups, so if I didn't get into medical school, what else would I do? But I never really thought that wasn't the direction I wanted to go.
Other questions?
Howdy, my name is Cameron Church, and I am in the business college in MIS and finance. So this is a question just in general for everybody, and I'm really sorry, I hate to be the guy that talks more about guys, but I think one of my experiences is that I've always worried about, I think I experience seeing men trying to be like dominant, which is pretty, being very masculine in the workplace. And so I wanted to know from the experience of women, and you've kind of talked about these experiences as well, but what are some ways that men in, any workplace can support women to foster more success in a way that's supportive, but not like, again, not like being the masculine, like, oh, I'm a guy, I'll help you, but in the way of, again, just like supporting women to be successful, to be like equal.
I would just say don't acknowledge gender. Like if you have a colleague, it doesn't matter if it's a female or a male. And for me, I've never, when we hire people, I never see gender. So I think that's the most helpful thing is we are all, I think, the same level of skills and I don't know, that's my point. Like, don't give gender too much in a workplace. And I do have to run, because my ride is here. Is it okay, Noel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
You want to catch your plane. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, do we have time for a couple more questions? Yes? Okay. So, let's finish this question. So, anybody else want to add?
I'll add a little bit to that. I appreciate the question because I think it's very obvious we have a very real problem with women in STEM education and STEM careers, and it's not a women-only problem. It's a problem for all of us. And I had the fortune of hearing Michelle Obama speak a couple months ago when she was in Vancouver, Canada, and she had a similar question, and her answer resonated with me, which is, well, first she said, men, you got us into this problem. You need to get us out of it. But then she said, whatever it is that you can do, that's what you should do. So whatever position you're in, if you're the CEO of a company, you can help a large batch of people. If you're not, you still have influence and you have network. So whether it's your peers or it's your kids or it's your sisters, do everything you can do. And that, I think that's, find your way to do that, and that's what you can do.
Yeah, we've got one more.
Notice.
No, one more. Let her answer, and then we'll get yours.
Notice. And if you notice, do something. So it's hard. It's hard to notice. If there are stereotypes and biases, step back and see if you can do something about it. And have the courage to do it.
Okay, we're ready.
Hi, my name is Christine Sizemore, and I'm studying Management Information Systems. Thank you all for coming. My question was regarding mentorship. I sometimes struggle with knowing if it's appropriate to ask a question to a mentor or identifying a mentor or just looking for people that you admire. Could you talk about your experiences with that and how you go about those processes when you are looking for advice?
I would say always ask questions. The worst thing that can happen is they just won't answer them. I mean, really. And I was always, and actually I found that people love it when you ask them questions. People love to talk about themselves and love to talk about what they do. We're all up here, we're loving this. So yeah, asking questions is 100%, they'll do it, they'll love it.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to add?
I would say I don't think you always have to formalize a mentor relationship, and mentors can change over time. I think about mentors in my life, and I don't think I ever said, "Would you be my mentor?" But they're people who have emerged as people who care for me and people that I respect and are willing to give me honest opinions. And those are people who become really important in my life. So. As you see people around you that you respect, ask questions and just develop those relationships.
I think I have asked people to be my mentors, and sometimes they just have been my mentors. And I'm trying to think the latter, how that happened. I'll have to think more about that. But asking helps in the sense that you tell them why. So the mentors are for different things. If it's for a career that you're in and you have questions and you just need a soundboard to say, okay, what should I be doing now? You were here before. Then tell them this is why I want you to be my mentor, and meet with them. And they say, okay, I want to have coffee. I want to talk to you. So talk. It doesn't have to be a question and answer thing, but it just helps to build those relationships over time.
Thank you.
I think there's a question in the back.
Yes, my name is Erica Serrano. I'm a PhD, finishing my PhD in molecular plant sciences. And my question is about the confidence gap. Because I feel, I don't know, I have always feel this confidence gap because I have like really super high standards, so I always want like everything to be perfect. But I realized comparing like with the standards of other people that I was doing really, really well, but not in my standards. And I realized that at least with my advisor, if I tell him like in honest truth, okay, this is the way that I see myself doing with my highest standards. But if I just measure by what everybody else is measuring, I'm really good. So how do you handle that? How do you handle that confidence gap? And also, because I also think like besides our confidence gap, usually with women, always people, or at least with me, I don't know, like always you need to prove yourself. Always, like you said, you need to be even better than the other people at the table. So how do you handle that?
You want to go?
Well, yeah, there was like so I'm the same way. I'm the imposter syndrome, right? But I'm really competitive with myself. So even once the writing it down on paper and going, okay, yeah, technically I am I don't know, at least on the same level, if not beating other people around me because we are such high achievers, then you can also, you have that evidence. But as far as a confidence gap, I think just, the achievements that you achieve are they're, convince yourself that it's okay to be kind of hard on yourself sometimes, right? To say, okay, I don't feel like I'm doing well enough, but I'm looking at the paper and it's telling me I'm doing well enough. So you know what? Suck it up. Get out there. Do your job. I'm doing good. Just believe it and go do it. And it's hard sometimes, but the more you go out there and just do it and keep doing it, you'll get used to it. And the people around you will get used to it too. Like you were saying, it feels like we have to work harder, but my experience has been, I work in a really male-dominated place because it's mostly engineers and craft and a lot of construction. So we've got tons of electricians and pipe fitters and everything out there. And for the most part, they are awesome. They are, I rarely ever have any, issues with anyone looking at me and going, oh, you've got to work harder to get my respect. I do run into the built-in bias sometimes where the first time I meet someone, they'll kind of like don't know what to do because they're like, oh, what do I do with this? And sometimes they'll maybe say something weird, but they realize it, and then the next time I see them, they know how they're prepared for me to be there, I guess. So just, the whole show up, be competent, they'll get used to you, and you'll get used to it, and eventually you'll bridge that gap.
Anybody else?
I would just say there's 100% certainty that no one will do you better than you. So, what you're comparing yourself to is your own expectations, and we all just need to know that we're good enough. And what makes us different is also what makes us special. So that's a good thing. And diversity is good for business, right? If we all think the same way and have the same backgrounds, then we're looking at the problem from only one angle. So I would just feel confidence in that. Feel confidence in the differences and those things that make you you.
I'm going to interrupt here for just a second. The servers are going to be starting to serve dinner. If you have dietary restrictions and we've given you a card, would you make sure that you've circled what your dietary restriction is and hand it to your server when they come? Okay, we have one more question.
Can I answer that one? Because I think that...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, never ever stop believing in yourself. Don't hear other messages of you. Believe in yourself. Second, surround yourself with people who appreciate you. They will reinforce how good you are. And have fun. Be so good that no one can ignore you. That's a fun challenge.
Okay, last question. Identify yourself.
I'm Claire. I'm a zoology major with a math minor. I wanted to ask how all of you guys managed to have your careers and go through school. Julie, you said you didn't graduate till you were 25 and still keep your youth, I guess, or experience it while you were still young. If you guys, most of you have been in school for a long time, so how were you able to be in school, get jobs, and still live your 20s? I guess.
I never went away to college, so I moved out of my parents' house when I was 19. I was working during the day and started out going to community college, and then went to evening classes. So I feel like I missed a step, which is part of the reason why I'm so enamored with colleges now, especially as my kids start to, look forward to that. But it's sacrifices, and for me, I'm glad that I went the path I did because I had a pretty strong resume when a lot of my peers were just graduating college. I had 8 years of experience that I could put on a resume. So that was my path.
Anybody else?
More fun.
No, I'm kind of echo that I kind of put my life on hold for at least during medical school. It's intense, and I'm fortunate that I didn't have a husband and kids, though some of my classmates in medical school did, and they managed to balance things. I still found, you can't just have your nose in a book all the time. You still have to find your elements of joy, whether that's hanging out with your classmates or, spending time with your family, whether that's a spouse or parents or siblings or whatever. So you've got to carve out time for that, but sometimes you've got to apply yourself, and if it's that 4 years that you're going to have to push through, then just do it, but knowing that there's a reward at the other end.
Anybody else?
I will also echo that I had absolutely no life while I was in school. But you work so hard for those 4 or 6 or 8 years, and then the rest of your life is so much easier for it and so much better for it. And as a bonus, if you actually like what you're going for, then the hard work is kind of fun sometimes. So one interesting thing after we graduated, I don't know if you experienced this, but I had to actually work at figuring out what to do with my time because I hadn't done anything in so long. So I had to go out and seek hobbies and things to do so that I didn't just sit at home all the time being boring.
For me, lots of sleep helps, and yeah, I'm really old, so thank you whoever asked that question. And if you find your passion and find paid work in that space, then it's not work. So I don't think I'm working. I just feel like I'm having fun, so that helps. It doesn't mean there were not challenges. Trust me, there were a lot. But if you love what you do, I think it helps.
All right, let's thank our panelists.